Hello, everyone. Um, Russ is now going to tell us all some advice. Go ahead, Russ.
I am. I was at the vet's today, not for me, but to pick up some stuff for my dogs. And one of the technicians said she found out I was a hockey guy. She didn't realize I was on the radio and stuff. So we're chatting. She goes, "My son is 3 years old. He really wants to play hockey, but he's actually scared of the loud buzzers and stuff. So I'm kind of waiting a little bit to bring him into games and dip him into the sport." And she said, "But I really want him to play." And I said, "Get him to go figure skating first. Let him take figure skating lessons for a couple of years. Then when he outgrows this, he'll be the fastest hockey skater out of the bunch because he can teach him everything else. But the skating, if you can get it going at the beginning, would be great." Like me, my own sad story, I couldn't walk till I was 5, so I probably didn't even start skating until I bet you I was 12 years old, right?
Wow,
Which at that point, now if people want to know why they see the skater that they see when they see me, that's why. But if I had a chance and my parents could have, said, "Hey, let's get him into something early," I'm telling you, go figure skating before you even start to do hockey stuff, because I think that's the most important part. I have a cousin who was like a figure skater, really good. She always told me that, and I kind of agree with that. But what's your thoughts?
there are some NHL players who went that route too. I know John LeClaire is one that comes to mind right off the bat. And other players, and you could see it in the way they skated.
Mm-hmm.
I would say play street hockey and figure skate. That's what I would say. Yeah, I would say because I think
actually set up a little street hockey thing in the basement. I said, if you don't mind getting holes in the wall.
Street hockey is really important. And just there's nothing like how old is he?
3.
Yeah, so there's nothing like getting some knee hockey stuff that you can do.
Yeah, I said get a plastic ball, get a puck, get a net, a ball rather, and get a net and get it going.
There's nothing like learning just that motion of of moving a stick. And because I've seen kids who do that from the time they're really small all the time in their basements or even in the living rooms. You can get these really cool knee hockey things with like total foam pucks that won't hurt anything. And they're awesome. That's how I learned how to play goalie, was in the living room, with my mom throwing pucks at me. That really plays into it. And after a while, because you're right, at 3 years old, give him 2 years of figure skating, he will be a monster at 5.
And if you want to improve his prospects for the NHL, make sure that when he gets a stick, he makes sure to spear somebody in the nads.
This is why you don't have kids, Mike.
Adding a lot, yeah. No, I mean, I have a good friend who we all know, Cap Neo here, who has his son is crazy good, and he is he's exactly. I mean, he didn't do figure skating, but he was playing hockey of some kind, had a hockey stick in his hand from 3 years old, and it's a perfect time to give it to him. Like,
it really is. I know.
And just practice, and it's a fun thing for them to do because it's easier than a baseball bat trying to hit a ball. It's just on the ground. You can hit it back and forth to each other. You can have a lot of fun with it.
And of course, if this kid becomes a player, I will take full credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You discovered him. You scouted him at 3.
Yeah, at 3. That'll be in my bio. Don't worry.
No, I mean, it's so true. I mean, the skating thing is such a leg up, especially when you're early, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. It's such a leg up that players will make teams. I know kids. I know people who coach junior hockey or youth hockey like that, and they'll put guys on the teams who can't play hockey at all if they can skate really well. I mean, they figure they can teach the hockey part. Skating is if skating feels totally natural to a kid, there's nothing that can compare to that. Like that, if the skating isn't a factor in his head, like NHL players, it's not. They don't think about skating when they do this.
Well, I mean, my niece's son is 8 years old, and he just made a travel team locally. So, and of course, having delusions of grandeur, my niece is hoping that he's on his path to the NHL. And I told her, well, as long as he gets drafted by the Maple Leafs, that'll be fine.
What I always tell people for kids where, the best possible dream is to get them onto some sort of NCAA team with some sort of scholarship. If you're really good enough, you will get noticed, and you will eventually either get drafted or signed as a free agent, but you'll have a college education. I think that's the best way to go every time.
And that's even like a real long shot there. I mean, to me, I have a couple notes of advice I've given people before, and it goes throughout all of youth sports. Make sure that they're on a team with their friends. Make sure that they're playing with friends like that. Don't try to put a kid on a team that's better but if he hates the kids on that team, don't keep him there. I mean, it's just that I've seen people quit sports for that time and time again. I mean, it really there's a pecking order in all youth sports. You know, you play for your local township team, and then you make it to a travel team that's a bigger travel team that maybe combines 4 or 5 townships around you. And then if you're really the best in that, then you get recruited into some kind of like system, of the youth flyers or whatever. And and all that is great. But if they're really happy where they are, and they're excelling there, don't be so fast to move them out of there, because it's better for them to play and succeed. Like, I had a typical story is someone makes a B team, and like I know a guy who made a B team. This kid I'm talking about is Cavnio's son, who made a B team a couple years ago, and he's a really good player. And he was all upset because some of his friends made the A team and he thought he was better than them. Well, a couple of his friends made the A team no longer even play because they went to that A team, sat on the bench, and did nothing. Where he was on the B team was the starting center, playing every power play all the time, and now he's on the A team, surpassed all them. And it really is a matter of sometimes a B team is a good move.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And it doesn't mean that he's not going to eventually be a better player. And sometimes you want him to get the most ice time he can. You want him to get the most confidence. It's confidence.
Yeah, listen, I specifically failed math that one year, so the next year I could get a 99 average, and I had a 99 average. That's why you do it.
Right. That's what you do, right? And confidence, but confidence is it, right? Training and confidence for youth sports. That's what it comes down to, right? Youth sports is training and confidence. And if you and you have to enjoy it. And so many people, parents get delusions of grandeur and push their kids along to the point where they end up not playing, or they're on the 4th line on some great team, but they're not playing. So it's like, it doesn't mean anything to them, so, that if you don't enjoy the journey, it's not worth doing it.
I agree.
You don't know where it's going. You don't know if it's going to lead to a scholarship. You don't know. And here's another thing I just found out. I'll go on after this, but I thought this was really interesting because my daughter is a really high level soccer goalie. Probably one of the, not to brag, probably one of the top 3 to 5 of her age group in the state of Pennsylvania. That's pretty good. Okay, so and it's not like she's one of the best in the country, but she's probably one of the top 50 in the country, maybe, or something, in her at 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got asked to play for better teams, but it's moving away from her friends, where she go to be a backup or whatever. She spent a year as a backup because she made her varsity team as a freshman. Spent a year back up there. That was great for her and stuff like that. And you see this, you see how they progress, and it really is nothing better than the fact that she has stayed with the same travel team since she was 8, and the fact that travel team has moved to different clubs, but that travel team is the same group of people since she was 8. And as they get into high school and there's more and more people thrown at them, and they their friends groups get small, they have to find their own way, because we all go from like a small elementary school to a bigger middle school to a bigger high school. As you get to that point, it's nothing like having like this consistent thing of your travel team that you go to 2 nights a week.
Sure.
It's great. And she's talking about colleges, and she wants to go to Cornell. That's where my wife went, and she does really well in school, so she can probably get into Cornell. Lord knows if I can pay for it, but she can get there. So so I'm like, the pressure's on. But I was talking to somebody about this, and Cornell is a good Division I women's soccer team. Is she good enough to make that team? Cornell's an Ivy League school, so they don't give out scholarships. So,
but you can get grants for being very smart.
To do some kind of like something. Is she good enough to be on that team? Maybe not. But she really isn't going to be a professional soccer player. She knows that. But those colleges have something that's really interesting, and I think this exists with hockey colleges too. If you go to a good hockey school, there's actual travel teams at the colleges themselves that aren't playing in division. Like there's the Division I players, but then some of the best players, I was told, that go to Cornell are playing on the travel Cornell team, which is a team that plays. They practice twice a week, not 6 days a week, twice a week, and they go and they travel, a couple hundred miles maybe to stay overnight a couple times or whatever. But they're able to also really focus on their schools and still play soccer at a high level. So that exists too. People I don't think realize that at colleges.
Yeah, I don't realize that. I didn't realize.
It does exist. Like that, the better colleges, have really good. Of course, they have their college team, but then there's also a Cornell travel soccer team, which just goes and plays other Ivy Leagues, and they raise their own money for travel and all that stuff, and they drive their own cars, and they just do what you would do if you were still playing travel soccer or whatever. And then below that, there's also really good rec teams at all these schools. These schools have their own rec leagues, internal, leagues. So they can still keep playing the sport they love, even if they're not playing at like the highest level. So there's different things there. I just kind of found that out. Thought it was really interesting. So, Anyway, good stuff. I like that. I always like talking about that kind of stuff because I think we'll have a lot of people out there with hockey kids, and I would love to do I would love to do a youth hockey show. Really, I really would. That would be a.
I mean, I wouldn't mind getting a pickup game together with a lot of 3-year-olds and really teach them the finer points and let them watch Tom Wilson and just like what Mike was saying, that'd be great.
Right. You know, like I told you, I schooled the Kapanen kid when he was 3. So I mean, I don't know how old he was. It was probably more like 8. But yeah, you know, I took him to town. So anyway, you know,
he's still recovering from it.
Still recovering from that. All right, let's get going here. Ready? All right. Hello, Hockey World. Today is April 5th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Anna Mecklin, and yes, it is a Wednesday. And you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time. Is supported by people like you at Patreon.com/hockey. We so much appreciate the support you guys give us.
We do appreciate it.
Really, really do. You know, we have a lot to talk about today because we had 12 games last night. 12 games that determined a lot and put us in a lot of situations. And you know, first off, I guess we should start with the race in the Atlantic. We've been talking.
Oh wait, can we just start off with one thing on the top?
Sure.
Did you see the score of the Anaheim Calgary game?
I did. I went to sleep and Calgary was winning. I was about to text you guys. After the first period, Calgary's up 1-0, and I was about to text you, but it was pretty late. I'm like, I won't text him.
I think there were 13 games last night, Russ. So he ignored the game that he was trying to point.
Of course.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, there were 13. Whatever. Yeah, so I really did. I had high hopes. Calgary played. I watched the first period. Calgary's up 1-0 at the intermission. I'm like, this is going to be the case. I'm a prophet. Here we go. It's all set. But anyway, Anaheim does come through.
I'm a prophet. Okay.
I thought it was all set. Anaheim comes through and wins the game. But, you know, there you have it.
Just trash the Buzztron 9000.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it did better than I would have done last night. But, you know, so Calgary losing that game, you know, is a big deal, obviously. Edmonton losing to LA, also a big deal. San Jose losing to Winnipeg, right? I mean, did San Jose win last night? No,
I'm sorry?
Did San Jose win or lose last night? I thought they lost, right? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, I believe they did.
Right.
But right now it sets up.
Sorry, I apologize. They won last night.
It sets up Anaheim versus Calgary and Edmonton versus San Jose in the first round. I mean, there would have to be a dramatic change in the last 3 or 4.
No. I wrote about this today. This is not true.
Okay.
No, because it does set up Edmonton, San Jose in the first round. That is set now, pretty much. I mean, it would have something crazy would have to happen there. But in the standings now, as you look at it, okay, Nashville's 92 points, Calgary 92 points, St. Louis 93 points, right? So you really have 3 teams still that could end up in those spots. St. Louis has 3 games left. They're pretty easy games too. But then again, those are the teams. You know, and does St. Louis want to play Minnesota in the first round? I don't know. But you can't pick your opponent, as someone said to me today, and it's absolutely true. But you do run into a situation like last year where I felt really bad for the Rangers. Ending up with the Penguins on the last day of the season because they were, and I remember the Rangers challenging a goal. Remember that famous moment where they challenged a goal against them that would have helped push them back into a matchup against, who would have been? It would have been.
That's
Florida.
a good question.
Florida. Played Florida.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, instead of
the Islanders instead get to play Florida. The Islanders win that playoff series, right? And that really changes everything. So this was tricky last night. And so the thing about here's the real matchup. Here's how it goes down. Here is the race to avoid Chicago as it goes down. All right, 93 points, 93, 92. Now Calgary and Nashville have 92 points. They both have 2 games left. St. Louis is ahead with 93 points, have 3 games left. So St. Louis, you would think, has a pretty good shot here. They haven't been world beaters lately, but they play Florida, Carolina, and Colorado. Okay, they play 3 teams who aren't in the playoffs. But, Colorado last night beat Chicago. I mean, things are happening right now. So,
First, not happening.
Right. First of all, the Sharks won 3-1 over the Canucks. I apologize because I was asleep. But the Ducks are at 101 points. They're 4 points ahead of Edmonton and San Jose. They pretty much have first place.
Yeah.
Blocked. The one thing that was bad about that game last night, in spite of the fact that the Ducks won, was that Cam Fowler got hurt. I don't know the seriousness of the injury, but apparently it was a collision between him and Giordano, and that ended up with over 100 minutes and penalties in the third period of that game because there was I reviewed the video of that. There was some chicanery going on between, well, of course, Ryan Kessler is at the center of all of that. That's no great shock, but I mean, the Ducks are going to either play Nashville as they did last year or Calgary. I think they would much rather play Calgary because they have traditionally beaten them, whereas Nashville eliminated them in 7 games last year. So I think that's where things are. And I think probably Chicago would rather play probably rather play Nashville, although I think Nashville is a tougher opponent.
Well, here's what it comes down to. Both teams have 2 games left. Both teams have 92 points. Calgary holds the tiebreaker against Nashville. So right now, Calgary's ahead. They have their regulation wins. They have that wrapped up. So if they tie, Calgary's got that. Both teams play their last 2 games on the road, Calgary and Nashville. This is what's interesting. So both teams are going to have to do this on the road. Calgary goes to California. They play San Jose and they play LA. LA last night, was played spoiler against Edmonton. They're going to want to play spoiler again. San Jose is a team that Calgary historically destroys. This is actually a really good matchup. So actually the computer picks them to, believe it or not, lose to LA and beat San Jose. So we'll see how that plays out, but that's the 1-1. Then Nashville travels to Dallas and Winnipeg. All right, so you're looking at that. It's probably a little bit easier than San Jose, LA, you would think.
I think so.
Nashville similarly has a tough time against Dallas, so the computer again has losing Dallas and beating Winnipeg. So the computer has Calgary finishing in that spot. And Calgary getting Anaheim and Nashville getting Chicago, but it's really wide open. I mean, it really is like there's 2 games each. If any team here gets a win, or if one team wins both games and one team only goes overtime in one game or whatever, Nashville still can face Anaheim very easily.
It's possible.
Goes right down to the whole thing. I mean, there really is. I mean, if you were to look at this, just what do you like, Nashville versus Dallas and Winnipeg, or Calgary versus San Jose and LA? Who do you think?
San Jose needs to win that game because they're tied with Edmonton, so that would be tough. But LA, although in spite of the fact that LA beat Edmonton yesterday, I mean, they really don't have a lot to play for. So
San Jose is going to have to win without Thornton. That's tough.
San Jose's and they're both those are home games. Nashville, Dallas, and Winnipeg. Those are I wouldn't want to wager who's going to end up where here. And St. Louis, could still fall out of it if they lose 2 of those 3 games. So
I'm still not looking at them as a strong team anymore. Jake Allen has definitely saved their season, but I still worry about that team down the road here.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what the rule about this is, Russ, but there is some talk of Vladimir Sobotka left the KHL team. He vacated the contract.
Right.
Does that mean he can sign with St. Louis, or does he have to clear through waivers to be able to sign with them for the rest of the year? And
I don't think there's a way that he can sign for the rest of the year as a Russian player. There's no ATO or anything that I'm aware of for a Russian player to come in on a tryout or something and end up on a postseason roster. I don't think it could happen.
Well, I mean, the reason I asked is because of Radulov, because I'm pretty sure that Radulov, when he signed back with Nashville, he was an RFA, and they re-signed him to a 1-year deal. They had his rights, and I think
it was the trade deadline, though.
I think it was after the trade deadline.
No, because he played in the playoffs.
Right, but I think it was after the trade deadline. That's what I'm saying.
But they owned his rights. That's the key.
And I think is Sobotka a UFA or is he an RFA? That's the question.
I don't think he's an RFA. I don't. But
okay. But
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Does St. Louis still own his rights? I think St. Louis still owns his rights.
I think they do.
They might own his rights, but if he isn't under any sort of contract,
that would make him an RFA then, right? I mean, he would be.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's
somewhat of a restricted free agent,
right? But they would still own his rights. They'd still own, like, if somebody else tried to sign him, they would have to. I mean, it's all.
I don't think
owning a guy's rights because you drafted him and having him under contract are definitely 2 different things, and that's all I'm talking about.
I don't think you'd have to pass through waivers because I think because this isn't anything the team did. So this isn't like a situation where the team should be penalized for Sobotka.
Yeah, I mean, he just decided to go to the KHL, but in terms of what his contract is, I can find out as we go along here. But
yeah, I'm looking.
I mean, what does St. Louis want? I mean, St. Louis, if they fall back, I mean, obviously they've got to win these games because they've got to
avoid Chicago.
They got to try to avoid Chicago. I mean, at all costs. Like, you don't want to try to play Anaheim. You don't want to, and Anaheim's going to be tough too. They're not going to be easy to play anyway. So, I mean, the interesting thing. So in the East, going to that fun race, the Penguins pretty much wrapped up second last night. I guess they did actually wrap up second.
Yeah, let me just. Sobotka was a UFA in 2014, so he may want to go back to St. Louis because he played there before. But they don't have any rights, and since he's a UFA, he can't sign after the deadline. You'd have to. I think if he did, he would have to clear waivers through every team to be able to go. So
yeah, it's not going to happen. You're not going to see him.
But maybe it'll happen in the summer. But go to the East. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So Ottawa winning last night puts them in a pretty good spot to get second. It's not out of question that they don't get second, of course, but. Yeah.
I think right now you got 3 teams separated by a point.
Yeah, now you do have 3 teams separated.
So right now, I think everything is up in the air, and plus the next game is Ottawa versus Boston on. I think it's for Thursday. So
we do need to mention that Clark MacArthur had a surprise comeback and played, and we also need to mention, whether we discuss it or not, that Erik Karlsson is right on the heels now of Brent Burns, and I know there's these people out there that think, well, he doesn't deserve a third Norris, so he can't possibly win the Norris over Brent Burns, but he really could win the Norris over Brent Burns because he has been unbelievable for a month.
Yeah, and he came back. I don't know if it was what the extent of the injury was, but he had a foot injury. He had sat out. He broke his 300 and some odd game consecutive game streak, sat out a couple games. He comes back. He wasn't supposed to play in Detroit. Comes back, plays over 30 minutes. They win the game. That they lose the game in the shootout, but they get a very valuable point. Last night, he gets the 17th goal of the season, and they win. And so I mean, he's proving his value as a player. But the thing about Clark MacArthur, he's a player I liked in Toronto. He's an effective forward. He's had 4 concussions in 18 months. Some people thought his career is over with. Apparently, he passed the baseline test a little over a week ago, and they were hesitant to put him back in the lineup. But it could be the fact that Ottawa was so desperate to get a victory that they needed to put him in the lineup just for the motivational sake, just to get up for that game. Okay, here's Clark coming back, but that's a little scary that they needed to play that chip. To unless he was pressing them to get back in the lineup, and probably knowing hockey players, he was probably pressing to get back in once he passed the test.
Right. The Senators have the Bruins, like you said, which is the Senators right now a game in hand on the Bruins, so that helps them. So if the Senators knock the Bruins out there, that pretty much would put the Bruins away as far as catching the Senators goes.
Right.
The Leafs.
I think now the Bruins made it, they're probably not going to move heaven and earth to try and get any better positioning.
Yes, but and then
this avoid Washington.
This is the overall thing, and this is what I'm going to write about today.
Yeah.
In spite of the fact that Toronto was playing the second of back-to-back games, in spite of the fact that they played their backup Curtis McElhinney, in spite of the fact that their schedule, like most team schedules, has been ridiculous the last few weeks, and they looked tired. Yesterday, the 4-1 win that Washington did in Toronto is proof positive that the battle is going to be to the last game, and the battle will be not only to make the playoffs, but to avoid the Caps, because they are a juggernaut right now.
Now they have all kinds of talent and all kinds of experience. And
yeah, but it depends how banged up they are. Like, if you go to do everything and spend all your resources to avoid the Caps, and guys are really banged up as a result, you still may lose anyhow. So you'd rather be healthy and just – I know intellectually it sounds like you'd rather want to play the easier team, but I know teams the way they think, and teams the way they think is they'd rather be healthy and fully healthy than worry about who they're playing.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no question. If they're in the playoffs, they feel that way. Right now, though, there's still question marks as to, it's getting close to the point where we have our 8 playoff teams in the East for sure.
I mean, look at the Rangers. They're resting 4 guys against the Caps.
And the Rangers then play Ottawa. So that's the other thing. Like, so Ottawa, that's the other thing why I like Ottawa in this thing. The Rangers have Ottawa then, and then
they're going to rest guys against Ottawa too.
Right, and then the Senators, who are hurting, they historically play well against the Rangers, so they'll have a good shot at that one.
They will.
And then the Islanders come in. The Ottawa Senators end with the Islanders. Now that could be crazy, but it probably won't be. At that point, you would think the Islanders, although they kept themselves alive.
But the hurdle that they have to jump is the Bruins, because the Bruins see that game, in spite of the fact that Ottawa's got an extra game, the Bruins see that game as there's our chance for second place.
Right.
They beat Ottawa. They're 2 points ahead of them, and I'm not sure about the tiebreaker situation, but they open up that gap, and then it makes Ottawa win probably what? No, they have Ottawa right now has 4 games. 4 games left.
Yeah, Ottawa's got 3 games left. The Bruins have 2.
3 games left. Yeah, so that forces Ottawa to win both those games to get into second place.
At some point, we will have to talk about a completely meaningless game that I saw last night, but will have implications in the future.
Okay, definitely. It's an interesting little battle going on between the Rangers and the Canadiens for the race of who's actually going to have the better record in that first round series. Because right now the Canadiens are 1 point up on the Rangers at 101 to 100. It's fascinating that the top team in one division could be not
but
as.
The Rangers are resting 4 guys, so it tells you their interest in that race.
Right. Yeah, there's no question about that.
They have their hotel rooms booked for Montreal for games 1 and 2 already. The games down the stretch are meaningless for the Rangers. They're just going to rest players.
Again, word of advice: as a New Yorker, do not drive your car in with New York plates and park anywhere near the Bell Center or anywhere around that building with New York plates. Don't do it.
Personal experience here?
No, just I've heard a lot of stories.
Yeah. And there will be New Yorkers who make that trip for sure.
Yep.
All right.
The plane, rent a car.
We talked about this all year, but I think this really bears looking at right now for a second. The goal differential, Mark, is I've always believed is the best way of telling who's going to make the playoffs. And when you go through,
it used to be. I think it's starting to fail us, though.
I don't think so at all. I mean, look at this year. Okay, we go through this, and you have these all in the green right here. You look at all the green. Once you get to Ottawa, they're -3.
All right, there you go.
But then the second you get below the Mendoza line here, you're all in the red. So but
as an example, not to poke holes in it because I believe in it to some degree too. But like the Rangers +39 is very misleading.
Yeah, but it's still they're a significant plus team, no matter how, even if it's
100 points is ridiculous as a wild card. Like it's just ridiculous. Like we used to think 100 points was a big deal. It is no longer a big deal.
No, it's no longer a big deal. Then you go into the West. Okay, same thing. Green. Get to below the Mendoza line. Red. So for this year, it's really been there's only one team that actually no team that's a plus is not in the playoffs right now. The Tampa Bay Lightning are the only team they're even not in the playoffs.
No. Ottawa was a -3.
And Ottawa's the only. No, I'm saying if you're a plus.
Oh, not in the playoffs. I'm sorry. I thought you said in the playoffs.
Now, if you're a plus, you're in the playoffs right now. Tampa and Ottawa are the only 2 teams that that you could see swapping out, and that kind of makes sense. You would have kind of expected that. So. That shows that Ottawa had a way better season than we thought, and Tampa had a way worse.
But here's the thing: Carolina at -18 is still technically in it, even though they're not.
Oh yeah, no, I know they are still technically in it. They're but
they're -18.
Are they though? Are they still in it technically? I don't even think they are, because Toronto.
I didn't hear that they got eliminated. Did they get eliminated, Mike?
Yeah, no, they're definitely eliminated.
I believe
back.
Okay, they got eliminated. Okay.
Yeah. The only team right now that is alive is Tampa and the Islanders, and I don't think
and they're 5 points back. So I mean, really, we're just looking at 1 point here.
I mean, right now, Toronto needs to lose their last 3 games, and the Islanders and Tampa need to win all 3. And
that's what has to happen.
Right, and if that doesn't happen, then
Yeah, or I mean, actually, they could technically lose. There could be a point difference there because I think both the Islanders and Tampa would have the regulation thing on. Actually, the Islanders would. So the Islanders could actually technically lose 1 point, or Toronto could get 1 point.
Right. Islanders would have to go 2-0.
If they won the table in regulation, they would be 30. They would have 39 regulation wins, which would be more than Toronto has.
Right.
So,
Look at this Tampa number anomaly: 222 goals for, 222 goals against, 22 wins at home. There's a lot of 2-2s in there.
yeah, it is really funny. But I just think the fact that there's only one team, the Ottawa Senators, that's a negative in the playoffs, and there's no teams that are a positive out of the playoffs. I just think that's crazy. I mean that.
And the Senators were not negative until this recent downturn in the last 3 weeks. So,
exactly. So no, it tells you a lot. I mean, it tells you a lot right now, and that with all this, so it makes you kind of feel better as a person, like that the right teams are making the playoffs. The teams that are scoring more than they're giving up are making the playoffs, which is what you would. I think. I think like you don't want a team that's minus 12 or whatever to make the playoffs. The Flyers last year were I think were minus 7 when they made the playoffs. So,
well, yeah, that sounds about right, actually.
Well, I think there's only one corner of the world that was, and don't get me wrong, I don't think they're popping champagne and clapping and high-fiving each other, but I think there was only one corner of the world that was happy to hear about the news about Chris Letang, and that would be John Tortorella's office in Columbus, because with Letang out, I think that makes Columbus. I think that gives Columbus a better chance to beat Pittsburgh in the first round, and I think it severely decreases the chances of the Penguins repeating as Stanley Cup champions.
I don't know if it severely decreases. It definitely decreases, but Justin Schultz has been good enough where they do at least have somebody to actually fill in that role, where if this were a year ago, they wouldn't have had anybody. Like, you wouldn't have put Justin Schultz in that role a year ago. He was barely playing a year ago. And so this is actually, in a way, Pittsburgh's lucky that with their extra depth coming off of last year's win, they're not in dire straits now. They're not.
And he's been out for a while, and they've played well without him, so it's not like it's a sudden loss and they'll have to deal with it. They've been dealing.
That's the Def Leppard drummer theory, by the way. That's what that is, or the Def Leppard drummer effect that I talked about. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, I think Letang is more actually important to the Washington Capitals than anything else, because I think that's where this really will come down. I think the Penguins can still beat the Blue Jackets without Chris Letang.
I do too. Ultimately, I do too.
I think they can. I think they can, but I'm saying I think the loss of Letang, obviously makes Pittsburgh a less impactful team, and Columbus, if everybody's on hand for Pittsburgh and if everybody's on hand for Columbus, everybody's going for Pittsburgh because they have the experience. They've won the Stanley Cup a couple times, but I think Columbus has had a great year. They've had a great season from Bobrovsky. They've, their power play is excellent. Tortorella is a seasoned coach, especially in the playoffs. I think Letang being out and the number of injuries that the Penguins have had over the last few weeks going into the playoffs, we're probably going to get Malkin back. They're probably going to get Kunitz back, some of these guys who've been out for a while. But if Letang is out for good, their defense is not as good, and I think you can pressure the Pittsburgh defense a little more. It's going to make them a little less efficient than they were last year.
That's true. What'll be interesting, though, on the power play is they could just put Crosby or Malkin at the point.
Sure.
Yeah, the power play is not going to be a problem. I mean, they got plenty of. I mean, and Columbus has had a good year. They've had a
really good year. They've had a,
Bob is still going to have to quote unquote stand on his head.
Sure. I mean,
they had an incredible run, right? But beyond that run, they're just a few games over 500. So it's like and not to say that you can go beyond that run because it was a great run.
Wait, so are you saying you would bet on Pittsburgh yet? Because people in Columbus want to know that now.
Yeah, I would actually, but
okay. See, now you just gave hope to the people in Columbus.
I did.
Vegas.
I think. I don't know. To me, you got to beat the Stanley Cup champions before you can be favored against Stanley Cup champions.
Well, they're not going to have a choice. That's their first round opponent.
I know, and that's the issue, right? So that's why I don't love their chances. I mean, I think that they would have had a much better shot on home ice. That's why I thought last night's game was really important to them, and they really didn't show up for it. I mean, to be honest, that was the Penguins' game the whole way, and that was without Letang, and that was just that. And I'm not saying that that the Blue Jackets. Remember, we forget that this Blue Jackets team is the youngest team in the NHL. Like, we think Toronto's young, Blue Jackets are younger.
Yeah, they're young.
Well, that race is not over with yet. I mean, it's 3 points.
It's 3 points, but it's
3 points with 3 games to go. It's not unheard of that they
not unheard of. But who does Pittsburgh play the rest of the way?
They play Toronto. I know.
I can tell you right now. So yeah, they have. I mean, they
play at the Devils. They play Toronto. They play at the Devils. They play at the Leafs, and they play the Rangers.
Right.
All 3 road games.
At the Rangers, which they're all 3 road games. Yep, the Rangers won't matter to them. The Devils shouldn't.
Columbus plays at home against Winnipeg, at Philadelphia, and at Toronto.
So at least play a role in this whole thing, no matter how you play it.
Well,
who's going to get the home ice advantage in this? Because
it depends. It depends on whether they beat Tampa on Thursday and lock things up. If the Leafs beat Tampa on Thursday, then you'll probably see them. They won't take the foot off the pedal because it's a young team, but you will see, say, Anderson play 1 game on the weekend and McElhinney play the other.
Not if you have a chance. Not if you're going to finish in 8th.
Well, that's also the factor is avoiding Washington. I mean, like I said, I think that the message from last night is we got to keep winning. So we play Boston or Ottawa because you play one of those teams, you have a chance. You play Washington. I'm sorry. I don't think anybody in their right mind is taking the Leafs to beat the Capitals.
But you could always make the argument that the best time to play a team that is locked and loaded and looks great for the playoffs is the first round.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times those teams stumble through the first round and then continue to get better and better and make it to the Stanley Cup.
No question, more upsets in the first round than any other round.
Sure, agreed.
Because there's something about like teams that most of these teams you look at that are in here are consistently playoff teams, right? So they've been in the playoffs most of the time. So being a playoff team themselves in and of itself isn't really any special big deal to these teams.
Right.
But winning around the playoffs, if you don't win around the playoffs, that becomes a real thing. So yeah, the first round, the pressure is on in the first round. There's no.
I mean, Mike certainly knows as a Leaf fan, he's got plenty of first round victory T-shirts and definitely. I made it to the Eastern Conference Finals T-shirts. He's got those.
Yes. Yeah. If it wasn't for 1994, Russ.
Yeah.
You'd be in the same boat, my friend.
So a couple fun stats for you guys before we get on to our draft lottery simulator today.
We have to touch on the Olympics again.
Go ahead.
We do. Well, we have to talk about it.
Okay, Gary Bettman was interviewed last night on Toronto radio and was pretty straightforward when asked about the whole situation. Now, one thing, and the funny thing is, I put this out. This was a direct quote from Bettman that the NHL asked the International Olympic Committee to move hockey to the summer, and the Olympics Committee said no because tickets ratings were driven by hockey for the Winter Olympics, and they wanted them there. But that makes the NHL's point.
Yep.
It's important to them. It drives money. It drives tickets. It drives ratings. So if it does, you got to pay for it. And they didn't want to. Yep. The other revelation, and this is, Donald Fehr, as much as he's a gifted negotiator and as much as the NHLPA, thought that they limited the damage that happened in the last CBA, a colossal error was the fact that in the previous CBA, the Olympics and Olympic participation was in the agreement that they had to go. It was not included in the current agreement. And now the way the PA has positioned themselves right now, they just gave the NHL a negotiating chip. All these players making a big hubbub. And now the NHL said, if you want to go, you have to give up something. And that's where they are.
That's true, but like X said yesterday, not all players want to go, and this may have been put up to vote, and they may have written it the way their constituency wanted it. Like, we don't know when they all get together and they go online and they vote. They may have voted that down, Mike, and said, we don't want that in the CBA.
Well, it was funny because
it had nothing to do with Donald Fehr at all.
It was funny because, the only things that we heard yesterday or Monday night were from players like Lundqvist, like Erik Karlsson, the top players, top echelon players who would participate. And apparently this morning, Ben Lovejoy from the Devils came out and says, I don't. Maybe I'm paraphrasing. I don't really care.
That's how most of the players feel. I mean, I've talked to people, a lot of people yesterday who just think that they think this is a ridiculous thing because it doesn't affect them, and a lot of them actually understand where the NHL is coming from. They really do, because they also don't want they don't want to admit that. Of course, they've got to be players association guys, but they understand. They understand the concept. They completely see what's going on, and they realize that. I mean, this year's been tough because of the World Cup of Hockey. The schedule thing really has been a problem. It baffles my mind that couldn't have been worked out better. I think that's still the combination of the World Cup of Hockey and, of course, the week off. This year just completely – I mean, they admitted they made a mistake with it. So they're going to fix it.
But here's the most fascinating part. We did finally see a quote from NBC, and to paraphrase, it was basically like, yeah, we're not mad at the NHL, but we know you're going to still watch. You're going to still watch. You're hockey fans. And, and the point is, for at least the first couple of games, we are going to watch out of a morbid curiosity to see what these ragtag teams, especially the U.S. team, will look like now that the NHL guys won't be in it.
It'll be fine. It'll be absolutely fine. And that's what people are. I mean, as much as we all, as hockey purists, want to see the best players in the world, most people will still watch it and cheer for Team USA, and they'll be all over it. Because
I agree with that. I've been saying that all along.
I don't know squat about say freestyle skiing, right?
Right.
So I'm watching a freestyle skier, and I don't know if he's the best skier in the world. I mean, he looks amazing to me. I think that, and a lot of people who don't really follow hockey inside and out are going to say these teams are fine. And then what's going to happen though is there's going to be. It's really gonna be fascinating how they do it. If they go to the kids, I really wish they do. I wish they would. I think that'd be the best way. I honestly think they should take the World Juniors as a preview for the Olympics and then go to the Olympics. I know we talked about it. I don't know if we talked about it yesterday. Mike, you don't agree with that. What do you think about that, Russ?
I like the idea of it. You can get away with that because you would get guys that are not under contract yet. They may have signed a deal, but they haven't consummated it. So you could do that. And
NHL teams who are under contract, they won't have a problem with letting that guy go to the Olympics because that's an incredible experience for him.
No, they will have a problem. They will not be able to break that rule. Like those, trust me, AHL players will not be going to the Olympics. Right. There is no way David Andrews is going to step on the toes of the NHL.
I don't think he's going to have to step on that.
He's going to have to. So you're telling me a guy like, we'll bring up Jeremy Bracco just as an example, who plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs, will play for the Leafs rather. He's going to play for the Marlies. You're telling me if he's having a great couple of months and he has a chance of being called up, the Marlies are going to be like, no, go ahead, go play over there. If they get an injury, what do you think is going to be the first thing that gets pointed to? You could have had Jeremy Bracco in a lot. They're not doing it. They're not doing it.
It's going to be interesting because I understand what you're saying, but I've talked to people about this. So I don't. The NHL, the way they look at this, okay, they're going to look at like a situation by situation thing, and they have the right, of course, to keep a player from going. But
they're not going to make it a situation thing. They're going to have a blanket rule for everybody. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be.
I've talked to Marty. They say they aren't.
I know, but I mean, Bettman was very careful yesterday to not say anything about the whole Ovechkin situation. But the funny thing is that apparently someone in Russia, one of the VPs of the Russian Ice Hockey Federation, said, we're not going to ask Ovechkin to go because the NHL's not going. He's under an NHL contract. And unless he voids his contract and leaves and doesn't play in the NHL next year, we can't pick him and we won't pick him.
Which, and again, that's what I said. If these guys want to void their contracts, they're more than welcome to go.
Now, it's very possible.
You can loan players in the NHL.
Oh, they're not loaning anybody. Are you kidding me?
I mean, this is the thing. We know there's precedence in terms of them loaning players to the World Juniors.
Yeah.
We get that. But the thing is, we're not talking about a tournament of all 18 and 19-year-olds. We're talking about sending Jeremy Bracco to go play against Pavel Datsyuk and Ilya Kovalchuk.
All the better for that kid.
Oh, no. I'm not going to look at it that way.
But the experience of playing at a higher level and on the world stage is for those kids is really.
And who's going to pay for that player's insurance?
Yeah. Plus the level of.
I mean, Jeremy Bracco's not paying for it.
I don't know. All I know is what I've been told, and I've been told that they are going to go case by case on this.
Well, I mean, that's the
perhaps
thing.
there's another deal to be made. Perhaps there's perhaps there's an IIHF thing that's going to have to say, okay, we were going to play for insurance for some players, or maybe the teams will do it themselves to get the guy experience.
It could be.
Wait, is the NHL going to discount? Sorry, Mike. Is the NHL going to discount tickets when Alex Ovechkin's not there for 2 weeks?
No, right. Ovechkin's going. I'm not talking about Ovechkin's not going. I'm not talking about NHL players. I'm talking about AHL players. All right.
But the thing is, Zach, like a guy like Jeremy Bracco, who we're using as an example, he's on an NHL contract. The level of hypocrisy that is there of the NHL saying you can't take our stars, but you can take out one of the guys who's under contract to us.
I don't think that's hypocritical at all.
Okay, so would you let Travis Sanheim?
If you're under contract with somebody to work for them, that just means that the people you're working for have the right to do whatever they want to. So you can sit there and they can say, yeah, we're not going to let Ovechkin go because. Okay. But if we want this guy to go because it'd be a good experience for him.
I'm going to let this hit home for you. So when all this is being decided, and let's just say the Flyers are unsure if Travis Sanheim will start the year with Lehigh or the big club, which is really what's going to happen. And let's say he starts the year with Lehigh. And do you think Ron Hextall is going to let him go to the Olympics when first injury he'd be calling up Travis Sanheim? There's no way.
Now.
It depends. Okay, there are going to be players who are going to be okay. If that player is that important to your team, then he's probably a scratching in your lineup, right? Or he's just a scratch on your team. But if you're going to tell me that if Travis Sanheim playing Wilkes-Barre and the Toronto Marlies 3 times is better than him going to the Olympics and getting the experience of playing on a world stage against higher competition, I think the Flyers are going to do what's best for their player.
Well, I mean, the one thing that'll be interesting to see what happens is. And we've seen precedents of this. I think it was Albertville in '92, Russ, when guys like Dave Hannon, who was a UFA, Lindros was in the midst of the whole thing with Quebec. They were free agents. They were unsigned, and they went to the Olympics.
And I think if Ryan Miller's a UFA, he will go.
Right, and see, this is the thing that'll be interesting, Ek, when the trade deadline will be next year, when the signing deadline will be, because you could have guys who are free agents who say, I want to go to the Olympics. Yeah. I'm not going to sign that, but I could sign with a team if the deadline is after the Olympics. If the deadline is March the 5th, and the Olympics are from February 12th to February 28th, and there's a week in between, they can sell their wares internationally and then sign someplace else. That might be.
You always say one name, Dennis Seidenberg, right? I mean, Dennis Seidenberg this year goes to the World Cup of Hockey, and if he doesn't go to the World Cup of Hockey, he probably doesn't sign anywhere this year.
Right.
He goes and so I mean, if you're that kind of player, sure, you go and play in the Olympics.
Those guys are going to play, but I'm telling you, a guy who's a potential crown jewel of an organization. Leagues are not going to send that guy, especially when you have no idea what the insurance is going to be.
Well, no, the insurance, like I said, I don't know.
That's always the biggest factor, unfortunately.
But the insurance for those guys, we're not talking about $7 million a year players. Okay,
no, we're talking about entry-level contracts.
Right.
And then
I mean, the insurance for those guys is going to be as crazy. And the teams may just say that the experience of this is going to be great because they'll know that the player is playing at a higher. All you have him in the AHL because you want him to play at the highest.
Oh, but then I think if you're going to go that route, they will go with their lower level AHL guys. They will not go with their.
It's possible they might say, "Listen, Sanheim, you're our first call up. We need you to stay."
Right.
But it's also possible they could say, we can, if somebody gets hurt in the next 21 days, we'll deal with bringing up, another guy or whatever.
But USA Hockey and Hockey Canada will be footing the bill for that insurance, for that travel. And that's more expensive. I mean, honestly, I think
the travel's the same no matter who it is, but the insurance.
No, but the insurance is a lot cheaper for a UFA or a college kid.
Well, Bettman said one thing very interesting. Another thing very interesting yesterday that they wanted like other leagues, and I'm assuming he means like the Swedish league, the Finnish league, even maybe the KHL wanted the NHL to make a decision quickly and said, we hope that you go. Why? Because if you don't, their players have to go, and it's going to affect their league. So, I guess there is an impact, folks.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Ek. If it were this year, right? Like, let's say the Olympics were, as we were talking about it just happened. You would have had guys like Clayton Keller on there. You would have had guys like Jack Roslovic on there, guys who have just been called up to the league, who are playing in the league, who weren't yet, signed to pro deals because they were playing in college. Those guys you would get.
I mean, Do you think that NCAA clubs, Boston U, Boston College, Minnesota, Wisconsin, they let some players go to the World Junior, the ones that are 18 or 19 in late December and early January? Do you think they're going to sign off on sending those same players to the Olympics in mid to late February, probably a little earlier than that because they're going to be a training camp? I don't think they're going to let them go twice.
It's
No,
tough.
I kind of agree with you on that, and I do agree with that point. I think that it's going to be a situation by situation. I think it's going to be the wild west. I don't think we have any idea what's happening yet, but I do think that you're going to have some players who are from the juniors whose teams are okay with it. You're going to have some players who colleges aren't okay with it or whatever.
I think it's right now, I think it's, like I said, somebody made the comparison of it being the Spangler.
I don't think it's going to be the Spangler Cup because
I think it's going to be a collection of free agents of, like, say, guys like Steve Moses playing in the KHL for the U.S. or Brandon Cozen playing over in the KHL for Canada. It's going to be those guys, and it's not going to.
I think we'll get a lot of KHL Americans and KHL Canadians. I would agree with that, but I think that I think you're going to also. I think it's going to be a hodgepodge. I think it's going to be really interesting. We got to move on, but
it'll be interesting. We need to talk about Brad Marchand, though, right? Because here's the thing. So I didn't watch the game. And I did watch a completely meaningless game, which I'll talk about for a minute after. But with the Marchand thing, I was watching the call, and Jack Edwards did not make the call.
Right.
All he said was, "Oh, Marchand's skating away, and what's his name is down." And really, and was it Andy Brickley? Is he the guy who does the color? Yeah. They completely ignored what happened until they showed the replay, and then had to talk about it. I had the utmost respect for Jack Edwards, but I got to tell you, you can't be that homerish on a broadcast.
Yeah, but he is, Russ, and everybody knows that. And that's his shtick. He's a hometown broadcaster, and he's going to be that.
It was a ridiculous play. It was ridiculous.
It was a ridiculous play. And the thing I don't understand is Brad Marchand is one of, arguably could be in the running for the Hart the way he's played here. And the one thing that he can't separate from him and his improved play is the fact that he has brain cramps. Complete.
I talked to Brad Marchand, and I tell you that he believes that is part of his game.
Oh no, we believe it too, but we also believe.
He also believes that he has to. He knows he's suspending like reality in his head and just going to do that. He's not looking like a lot of players do when they get more skilled, and he thinks that this is wrong. They get more skilled and they change little things they do, and they don't get as hurt as much. I mean, we've seen like players, like suddenly Lindros was a good example. Lindros had a different game when he came in, and he had to because he had concussions and all that stuff, but he had to change his game. Marchand will always refuse to do that.
No, that's fine. But now he is starting to get into that territory where, like, they will have to suspend him for a couple games, right?
No, they shouldn't. He's
had a lot more slew foots than he's had suspensions. That's my point.
Well, and a really good article today on Hockey Buzz about this, guys, just to check it out. Not to toot our own horn here, but that Paul Stewart, who writes for us, does this whole check it out. Paul Stewart's article on Marchand can shed his skin, but still a snake article. This is really good article, and it's from Paul Stewart, so it's going to be fun and interesting. So he does a great job with it. One other quick thing I wanted to get to really fast was this. One of the coolest things of the year happened last night, and no one knew it. No one seemed to be talking about it to me because of all the other stuff that's going on. But this happened in the warm-ups for the Minnesota Wild game. The Wild wore Minnesota North Stars jerseys, and Zach Parise here wore his father's helmet and his father's gloves from when his father played for the North Stars. That's pretty amazing in and of itself. But the thing that strikes me, and I was just talking to somebody about this a week ago, and I had no idea this was happening. Why the hell aren't the Wild wearing these jerseys all the time? Like this, I really think that the Minnesota North Stars need to return. And the Dallas Stars can still be the Dallas Stars. Just have a Stars and have a North Stars. If they Stars. I mean, this is like, to me, this is such an awesome jersey. And I thought there was a reason. I thought there was something really deep that they hadn't done it because, like the Winnipeg Jets jersey, which they brought back this year for the outdoor game, which I loved. I thought there was a bigger reason, but this is so classic vintage hockey to me. I don't know, it just does the heart good.
I like that jersey, and I'm thankful that the NHL is not over officious and micromanaging like Major League Baseball was. If you remember, Russ, when David Wells had the Babe Ruth baseball cap, and they basically made him like in between inning or during the inning while he's on the mound, take it off and take it. Yeah. because it wasn't official. Or the NFL, that if you're wearing the wrong color socks or you're wearing the wrong tights or something like that, that you're going to get a fine. Nice. He wore his dad's helmet. He wore his dad's glove. That's cool. I love the jerseys. I don't think they're ever going to – I'd like to see them go back to that color scheme and maybe put a different wild type of emblem on it. But I like that. But I
did want to mention one thing for 30 seconds. In the Flyers game last night, Sam Morin made his debut, so did Mike Vecchione. Vecchione only played a little over 8 minutes. He was perfect on faceoffs. Like, this is Dave Haxtell just doesn't want to give some of these guys a chance to play hockey because they can't make a mistake. Travis Konecny made a mistake.
Yeah.
It didn't cost a goal, and he only played 10 minutes, and he played 16 seconds on the power play. In game, when you're this far in the season, it is no longer going to help Travis Konecny if he doesn't play. I mean, my point is, I get that you have to play a certain system. Nobody plays perfect mistake-free hockey, especially at that age. Let the kid play. Put him on the power play. You lost the game. Basically, they had no offense for a while.
It was a brutal game to watch.
It was a brutal game to watch.
Yeah, somebody should send a memo to Dave Haxtell. It's game 80, and you're out of the playoffs. Let the kids play.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just think that would – I don't know. But, he
let Morin play, but again, as a defenseman –
it's not going to happen with Haxtell because Haxtell, there's some certain things I really respect about Haxtell. There's certain things I just don't understand about Haxtell. He's a very confusing coach, and mainly because he tells us, in the media, absolutely nothing about anything. Like, as far as anything that they're doing. Like, I've never been around a coach that says less to the media than he does. He just, you talk to I've talked to Bill Melcher, who covers the team every single day, and he just says that he's learned nothing from any press conference he's had with Dave Haxtell the entire year. Yeah. That's astonishing. I mean, you've got to give us something. It's like, it's really insulting to just sit there and not say anything but coach speak. We got to play harder. We got to shoot more. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't know. There aren't many coaches in the league who can pull that off for a very long time. And
even the quote after the game yesterday about Konecny was something like, "Yeah, well, he was taken out because of this, and I probably won't have a long conversation with him because he knows what he did." And it's like, okay, but what? Yeah, how do you learn that way?
Right.
Now, I get the original benching. I do. The original benching was fine. This is different. This is now just let him play out the string and talk to him as he's playing and let him get the last few games in, as many minutes as he can. Colin McDonald for 16 minutes in a game makes no sense. Now, I get it as a reward because he was great with Lehigh, but beyond that, what does that do for the team having Colin McDonald play all these minutes?
Yeah, I'm with you. Real quick stats here before we get to this thing. The Predators are sold out all 41 games the first time in their history. I think that's pretty noteworthy. I mean, from a market that I once was down there trying to sell tickets to keep them from moving.
Yep.
So it really feels good for me that they did that. Patrice Bergeron has won 25 faceoffs in a row. I don't know that that's ever happened before. I don't really keep. I don't
know if Elias keeps track of that. That's the thing.
I don't think anyone does, but that is just crazy.
That is crazy.
I mean, that is just absolutely ridiculous.
That's amazing.
There is this thing on the Leafs. The Leafs and Lightning having an exact tie. Mike, did you get into that? Did you see this yet? Oh, Mike's gone. Shoot. That there is a way that the Leafs and Lightning can tie in every category.
And they would have to have a one-game playoff to
something like that. There is absolutely, it's crazy.
No, here's how you settle that. You have Morgan Riley and Steve Stamkos go out to center ice, and the same way you play the thumb game with a bat in baseball, you do it with a hockey stick.
Yeah. Okay.
So here it is. The scenario. Okay. They tie in all tiebreakers. Credit Twitter. There's a guy at Ineffective Math for breaking this down. The NHL rulebook says these: the fewer number of games, the first tiebreaker is the fewer number of games players. Oh shoot! I'm reading this wrong. We'll talk about this more tomorrow if it matters. But I'm not get more into this. But if this is the scenario, Tampa would have to beat Toronto in overtime. Okay, Tampa would then beat Montreal. Tampa would beat Buffalo. Toronto would lose to Pittsburgh, and Toronto would lose to Columbus. Okay, so Toronto gets the 1 point in overtime. Tampa wins their 3 games essentially, but it has to be Tampa specifically beating Toronto in overtime for this to happen. But if that happens, both teams have 94 points. Both teams have 38 regulation wins. Head to head, they're 5-5, and their both goal differentials are +6. Which lays out this scoring of these games. Okay, so
that's crazy.
We don't know. No one knows what would happen.
Well, I know what would happen. The goal differential would be exact, and Jake Gardner would give away the puck for a goal, and that would cost the Leafs the playoffs.
No,
Yeah.
you know what happened? They'll go with like the head-on-head percentage in the Atlantic, and they'll carry it out to like the 8th or 9th decimal place, and that'll be a very exciting mathematical finish. Eck would love that.
I think they would. No, they'd have to play each other.
You can't add a game.
They have to.
No, that
No
won't happen.
way. There is nothing.
I'm going to go on record right now and tell you there is no way they will add a
There's
game.
nothing in the rule book. There's no other. It has the 5 tiebreakers, and that's it.
But they will not add a game. I'm telling you
Why
right
would
now,
they do
they will
that?
not.
What will they do?
They might do a coin flip. They might just
Not
do
gonna do
that.
a coin flip to get in the playoffs.
Are you kidding me? Of course they will. They're not doing it.
The outcry that would exist if they did it. I
There'd
mean,
be more of an outcry if Austin Matthews went down with an injury in this game.
made for TV, Monday night coming up.
Coin flip. Monday night coin flip.
Yeah.
Leafs fans would tune into that.
A Monday night shootout. No game, just a Monday night shootout. Bring your
James Duthie flip the coin. Leafs fans will tune into it. I guarantee you.
I'm not participating in this conversation.
I'm going to do the coin simulator then. Ready? Heads, the Leafs win. Tails, the Maple Leafs win. Ready? All right. Heads, the Leafs have made the playoffs. There you go. All right.
There you go. That's it. That's what would happen.
There's no way.
Except there would be 15 or 20 minutes leading up to that for the show.
I'm going to find out. All right, here we go. Oh, boy.
Yeah. Make it.
I'm going to actually call the NHL on this one. I'm going to find out what would happen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, what the hell of it? I mean, they might. I mean, surely they must think about this. All right, ready? Here we go. For tomorrow. Here we go. Pop it up. The Dallas Stars. Yeah.
Oh, that would be good.
And the Coyotes. Golden Knights the 5th. I got to go, guys.
Okay.
We're running out of time. We'll be back again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon. Stopping.